Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Wes, Hank, and Andy. Sorry
not another huge monster.
Wow, wasn't expecting that. Apologies, running a little bit late here tonight. Sorry for that. But we are here. We are back. It is week 3.
Technically, yeah.
Technically week 3, but it's episode 5. Now, I hope you guys are enjoying the show. I have to say, well, I'm going to hold on a second. I guess we should probably start with another one of those
bad Star Wars jokes.
Yeah, that's the thing. I got one this week. I actually put some time into this. All right. What is the preferred fruit of Mandalore?
Ooh.
Anybody? Anybody?
No.
On Lothal, isn't it? Mailrun?
Mailruns. Not the Mailrun.
Mandalore.
Oh, you're warm. You're warm, Hank. My friends, the preferred fruit of Mandalore, of course, is the mango fett.
Nice. I hope you didn't put too much thought into that.
No.
That's wicked.
Oh my God. Okay, this one, The Return. And I have to say, normally I start with these, what I like to call these first impressions, and I'm just going to get mine off my chest right away. And I don't know if either of you can relate to this, but after last week, I let myself get too excited. And I don't know if the episode, and so for me, the episode underperformed. I actually didn't start to get, and normally I do, I get more out of it the second time around, which I did, but I never got back to that place where I was okay with it. And this episode, I have some serious issues with. Let me just get it off my chest right away. It seems like, all is forgiven, and that's bullshit. It's absolute bullshit. I mean, I think of, and good for Crosshair for having a conscience and starting to come around. And I love all that stuff. I do. I sincerely love the character development. But it's like, the Nazis who fled to Argentina?
Yeah.
They wouldn't be forgiven. And, Crosshair, I've done some stuff. You're not forgiven. So I feel like the episode kind of glossed over that. And I know that we have a limited amount of time to get where they want us to be by the end of the season. But I do hope we come back around to that, and Crosshair he's got to pay for some of that stuff.
I'm sure he will. But at the same time, if you put Vader, right?
Do we have a list actually of what he did?
We could probably compile one if we went back episode for episode.
I tried to find, I was trying to go like, where is this? Like, where did he cross the line unforgivably with them?
In that first mission with,
I would say with the refugees.
Yeah,
when he
was really blowing down Saw Gerrera and everybody that was with him.
Yeah. I mean, you have to sort of take your position on, was he doing? And again, he's like, I thought I was being a good soldier. Thought I was doing my job. Yeah, I guess so.
I just couldn't find a spot where he like directly screwed them over. Like he made some gray moral choices.
Well,
he could have killed them several times and didn't.
But he did attempt it a few times. Like when they got to that one junkyard and he got his chip burned out by the engine.
It had already been removed by that time.
Aside from choices, I was just trying to figure out, like, did he kill anybody that was?
Are we sure that it wasn't removed by that point?
we were speculating at that point, and we figured maybe this is what's going to remove it, because that's where the scar landed on.
There was a big revelation where he's like, I took it out. He took it out a while ago. So all those things that he did were by choice. Yeah.
Not. But that's what I'm getting at. I'm not exactly sure what he did that was unforgivable, except for choose the wrong side. But he didn't kill anybody's wife or kids or.
Wow. Not on camera.
They know of.
Not on camera.
On the team. Like that's all.
True. He didn't kill any of his brothers or sister.
I did say that towards the end of the episode. I said, I guess it's all good now. Like, but then I went back and I was doing some research and I was like, actually, like I feel like we built up the horrible things he did in our heads way worse than they actually play out on rewatch.
I think that in that sense that there is a lot of reading between the lines, and I think we do that with a lot of this stuff. I don't know if you can discount all of that.
Yeah, I have other problems with the episode though. I'm sort of sick of the kaiju genre.
Well, I mean, as you led with, hey, it was always a monster.
He says it right in the episode for
me. Yeah, exactly. I mean, so there it is.
Well, let me soften it for you a little bit.
Sure.
Yeah, by the end of the episode, Hunter's given him, almost a little nod of approval that, okay, I can maybe trust you again.
The nod of forgiveness.
But it's not all done. It's like, okay, you got a chance. Now you got to make good on it.
We'll get to it by the time we get to the end, but his like, all we can do is try to be better.
Yeah.
Tell that to Hitler. Nobody's forgiven him for that stuff. And again, maybe we did build that up in our minds.
Well, you just compared him to Hitler. That's
that's completely within the scope of what the Empire is. The Empire,
the Emperor, yeah,
absolutely.
But not Crosshair.
Well, that's true. Okay, so the Emperor is equitable to Hitler, but I mean to say that the Empire isn't an allegory, isn't an
100% is.
For the
but
Nazis.
He's one sniper in an elite division.
And let's face it, he never had the Youngling Slayer 3000.
That's true.
And we managed to forgive Vader at the end of Jedi. He got his own Force Ghost.
That is true.
So if Anakin can get a Force Ghost.
No, absolutely. I mean, redemption is a huge thing within Star Wars. Actually, that's actually one of the things I read this week. Always take a look at what the fans are saying in some of these online Star Wars groups, which I'm a member of quite a few.
Yeah.
I actually read several times this week people getting sick of the redemption thing. I'm like, but that's a Star Wars trope. That's a Star Wars trope.
It is a Star Wars trope.
Even if you make bad choices, you can still do right.
Yeah. You can.
Just like Vader throwing Space Hitler down into a power core.
Space Hitler.
That's a pretty big one to redeem on.
I guess so. Did any of the Nazis actually
just call him Space Netanyahu now, or is that?
Well, technically, Operation Paperclip took a bunch of them and just jammed them in American science positions.
Were they Nazis though, or were they just German scientists that were compelled to work?
I think they were compelled to work wherever they were.
Well, exactly. I mean,
but that's like the same distinction, though. Are you a Nazi or are you just a German sniper?
I think we would make a difference. We would accept that there is a difference between the frontline rank and file German army versus the SS.
That's true.
Yeah.
Nobody thinks they're the bad guy in the middle of it.
No, of course they don't.
Yeah. Nobody thinks they're the bad guy in their own story.
That's true.
The Emperor was the good guy in his story.
We came off the rails already and we haven't even started.
Several times. That's right. So this one, it is The Return. I want to talk about that title, The Return. What do we think about that?
I liked it. We got a little bit of a return. We got almost a return to status of what we got way back at the beginning with the whole batch.
It's Crosshair's return. It's his return to the place that he makes the correct moral choice. Because the thing is that we haven't been following him or we have in the prison and stuff, but he made the moral choice way back when, right?
Season 2 episode, don't remember the number, The Outpost.
Yeah.
Right. So like roughly halfway through season 2, he's been on board. He's just like, how do you get that? And I mean, at the end, he calls it too. He even challenges Hunter on the thing. Like
the later, I think it was in the bottom third. I think it was closer to the end.
Maybe the bottom third,
14 or something was that episode.
Yeah.
Certainly, we reference that in this one
multiple times.
I mean, superficially, the return could just be that we're going back to Barton 4, which we do. Yeah, but this one is it's okay. It's a good episode. Like, I hate using the word filler. I don't think this is, but like I said, I let myself get so excited because of the week before it delivered on so much for me that I was like, I was all excited to get up on Wednesday morning.
I did say, you could probably go back and quote me as saying I don't think there'll be any filler episodes, and this felt
you could attach that to it. I don't think it's fair, but if you had to,
it's got a little bit of character development, but not a ton goes on. Like, you could have had this happen in a 5-minute conversation in the cockpit onto a cooler mission.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing here was the tension was just getting them face to face so they could actually have it out. And you had to get them together. They put it they do it right around, another kaiju.
The same week Dune 2 opens.
That just blew me away. Like, I find it hard to believe that, somewhere that they did the math on that and worked it out. This episode would drop the same week that Dune.
Yeah. And maybe it's an homage.
No. I'm going to say no, because it is Jurassic Park.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Tremors.
So I did not get the Tremor references, but I definitely got the couple of Jurassic Park.
From the Thumpers, I got the Tremor reference for sure.
Oh, yeah, I guess.
I honestly, when I looked at the model of it and then I compare it to Mando season 2, episode 1, I feel like that's a snow version of a crate dragon, more than a worm.
So there might be something to that. This week, the episode guide didn't deliver as much as it did last week, but I did pull. We have the concept art for that, which we're going to put up a little bit later on. So we get to see we get to see the whole body.
Nice.
So we can talk about that a little bit later when we get to it. All right, it's the return. This one aired originally Wednesday, March 6th, 2024. This one written by Amanda Rose Munoz and directed by Nate Villanueva. Runtime on this one is an advertised 27 minutes, or it is an actual 24 minutes and 17 seconds without titles or credits.
Isn't Amanda Rose Munoz our frog mom?
Yeah, she might actually be.
Yeah.
Our episode synopsis this week reads, tensions rise as our heroes navigate new dynamics on a dangerous mission. All right, well, the episode opens on board the Havoc Marauder, where a sleeping Omega wakes up in her makeshift bedroom located in the ship's rear gun turret. Climbing down from the turret, she's greeted by Hunter and Wrecker, who tosses her a piece of fruit that was delivered earlier by Shep and Liana, confirming that we are, in fact, back on Pabu.
The opening, though, like, such a contrast to the opening of the season, right? Like,
with the light pouring in,
just bathed in sunlight,
the glow,
comfort, and she's got her little.
You could almost hear the
as opposed to waking up in dank, dark, slimy, cell where you got no light.
We get the first of 2 brand new looks for Omega in this episode. This one, she's wearing a new like knit vest, I guess, and
Isn't that some of the leftover gear they stole last time?
I'm not entirely sure. You mean the cold weather gear?
Yeah,
I don't know,
because it's got that sort of Hoth-like pattern on it, right?
Yeah, it's kind of got that.
It might have been. It could be something that was underneath the jacket, but I don't think she ever took it off in that episode.
No.
Well, with Crosshair nowhere in sight, Omega asks where he is, and Wrecker tells her that he wasn't on the shuttle when they woke up. Hunter says he's still adjusting, so Omega decides to go and check on him. And as she walks away, Hunter and Wrecker stare at each other in silence.
It's almost like this isn't the same kid that was kidnapped.
No, she's way more mature in this one.
Yeah.
Like, shockingly more mature. But again, being a prisoner for a few months probably would do that to you.
Yeah.
It's like you go to war, you come back a different person. We get a tilt shot of the island, the island on Pabu, where the camera traces its way from the top of the highest peak all the way down to a small bay nestled in the shoreline. Hovering several meters offshore, medical droid AZ-3 holds a piece of fruit up while Crosshair lines up a shot from the shoreline. The shot misses, passing between AZ's outstretched arm and his football-shaped head, causing him to nervously spin in place. Whoa! Spotting Omega on a ridge overlooking the bay, AZ greets her with an enthusiastic wave. Omega! At the same time, Crosshair looks over his shoulder at her before switching his focus back to lining up another shot. But the tremor in his right hand is making it very difficult for him. That tremor, that
come back to
keeps going. Anybody have any thoughts on that? Are we still going with this is a direct result of torture?
I think Hemlock switched hands with him. Hemlock switched hands with him.
That's an interesting thought. There was another possibility that I saw come up this week that people have been talking about. That this tremor might be related to mental health.
Like
I don't know.
Post-traumatic stress.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Some kind of tremor because of the trauma.
Yeah.
I don't think I can rule that out, but I don't think it's
chalk that up to torture though.
Yeah, I still think that there's a physiological thing going on here beyond the mental stuff. Yeah.
See how big a deal they make out of it? Like they do, AZ gives it a number. But I think it's to sort of maybe build up some dramatic, he'll make some critical shot later and we won't expect him to because he's, when it
counts, he'll make it.
We're not going to see another one of those triple mirror tower shots.
The four banks.
No. Well, then, I mean, yeah, he was. You put him up against the rest of them, and he's like almost a superhero compared.
In terms of strong, of course.
Yeah. Suddenly, that was like Jedi level stuff we talked about there. So
big time.
They may have nerfed him a little bit to make it more, the stakes higher.
Yeah, and dramatically more appropriate, I guess.
Right.
Well, when Omega reaches the beach, Batcher rushes over to meet her, affectionately licking her face, while three Munoz scamper past. Munoz, of course, were the little green monkey-like creatures introduced in the last season.
And Batcher's already getting along with them. He's not trying to eat them.
She chasing them around.
Yeah.
Spotting a large bowl of fruit sitting on the rock beside Crosshair, Omega walks up, noting that Shep and Liana have found him as well. Taking his eye out of the scope for a moment, Crosshair notes that their ability to do so is uncanny. I don't think he was happy about that. I just want to be left alone.
I gave him something to shoot at.
Yeah, really, besides, AZ's football-shaped head.
Exactly.
Taking a seat beside Crosshair and leaning up against the large rocks, Omega tells him that he's got to stop hiding and eventually talk to Hunter. Crosshair says it's not hiding. No, in fact, he's training. And then he takes another shot. This one also flies between the fruit and AZ's head. Looking at his hand, Crosshair scowls as it still trembles. Omega suggests that AZ could look at it for him, but he insists that he's fine. Changing the subject, Omega asks, what skills does a sniper require? I actually like this part because she's taken that time to learn pretty much from everybody. And now it's her time to kind of poke him now. Hey, what's the deal with your thing? Well, besides needing good eyesight, he tells her that it's more than just looking through a scope. It requires patience and the ability to read the environment. Then, as if on cue, he shoots a sideways look behind him as he tells her, and knowing when you've got eyes on you. The camera looks up at the ridge from Omega's perspective, and we can see Hunter and Wrecker watching. Crosshair says that they don't trust him. Omega gets up and she pats his shoulder, telling him to give it time. But he will have to talk to them at some point. Omega looks up at Hunter and Wrecker as she shakes her head. On top of the ridge, Hunter tells Wrecker that he's not sure giving back Crosshair's rifle was a good idea. But Wrecker says, well, if Omega trusts him, good enough for me. Just then, a ship passes overhead, and Hunter whistles down at the beach. Excitedly, Omega shouts, that's Echo! While Crosshair remarks sarcastically, perfect. As Omega rushes off, AZ floats in front of Crosshair and tells him that his shooting accuracy today was just 53%, and he calls it well below his average. Shaking his head and grunting in frustration, Crosshair walks past the droid and off the beach. At the landing area, Omega leads the batch towards the Remora. Omega leads, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
And I know she's excited to see him, but like it's not lost on me. Like she's Yeah, exactly. At the landing area, Omega leads the batch towards the Remora. I don't think we knew the name of this ship when we saw it last season.
Don't believe so.
It is confirmed in the episode guide. It is called the Remora.
Nice.
Steam vents from the landing struts before the ramp drops and Echo walks out. Omega rushes over and gives him a big hug. He's happy that she's safe and back where she belongs. But then Crosshair is there. What? No hug for me? Echo says it depends on how good his intel is. Crosshair scoffs as he looks away. The moment is tense, but Omega looks at the two of them and she smiles. It's the first time they've all been together in a long time. Well, except for Tech, of course. Later on that evening, the batch sits at an outdoor table at Shep's place. Omega tells them at Tantus the Empire was using clones for testing and was taking samples from them. She says most were held in the detention wing, but she never saw what was in the vault. That not even Emery was allowed in. Echo questions, Emery? And Omega tells them that she works for Dr. Hemlock and that she's a clone like they are, adding, like me. Looking at Crosshair, Echo says, and what about you? Anything else to add? Crosshair tells them that he was a prisoner and there's not much to tell. Echo says that they've been looking for this base for a long time, but accurate intelligence is hard to come by. They need to know all they can before making any moves. Omega slides Nala Say's datapad across the table to Echo. She says it doesn't work anymore, but if they can get it online, there might be more intelligence on it. Hunter points out that it might have schematics on Mount Tantus itself. Echo picks up the pad, remarking that Imperial encryption will be a problem, especially without Tech.
Anybody else feel like they were all really underwhelmed at the fact that there's another female clone?
They just completely... Okay.
Yeah, okay.
It's like just this like collective like, yeah.
Like when Echo first said her name back, I thought he knew. You know, I thought, oh, now we're gonna get cool.
Yeah, it just
I was
agree.
like, why even bring it up if they're just gonna not even like that seems super underwhelming to me. I was like,
maybe that will come later on. Like one of those questions, we talked about this before about, you know, people who potentially might flip. Is Emery going to flip?
Yeah, big time.
And maybe we're just saving that kind of interaction for that moment.
Yeah.
You know, when she decides to
make the good choice.
Yeah, exactly.
But at the mention of Tech,
she's like flip like Deirdre.
Yeah, exactly. No, absolutely. You're
like they all pause and drop head.
Everybody stops, their heads hit the table, and it's just like this moment of like,
oh yeah, Tech's not here.
Yeah, complete silence.
Yeah, that was good.
I liked it a lot. So Hunter points out it might have schematics on Tantus itself. Echo picks up the pad, remarking that Imperial encryption will be a problem, especially without Tech. As he sets the data pad back down on the table, everyone lowers their head in reflection. Crosshair is next to speak. He says that plugging it into an Imperial terminal would bypass the encryption. Wrecker asks, where do we get one of those? Crosshair tells them he knows of a remote facility that is understaffed, and it shouldn't be a problem for them to infiltrate. Excuse me. Hunter thinks for a moment before telling the group that he and Crosshair and Echo will go to the facility while Wrecker and Omega wait here on Pabu. Shocked at the decision, Omega blurts out, we're finally together and you want to split us up? But Hunter reminds her that they just got her back, and he's not going to risk her being captured again. Omega tells him matter-of-factly, yeah, I escaped, but I left all those clones behind. I have to do this, Hunter. Hunter sits back in his chair, and he looks across at Wrecker and Echo, who both nod at him. Kind of like that silent approval. Yeah, we're good with that.
And again, she's all about that, like, you know, no clone left behind.
Yeah, that's a kind of a recurrent thing for her, isn't it?
And do we think in this moment that Crosshair was possibly thinking they might be getting some reinforcements if they go back here? Because when he left, there was still a few clones left.
You mean that more clones were going to show up, or more Imperial troops?
More clones that they had left behind right there, because they were starting to feel the pinch, right?
I don't know.
And we find out later what happened, but
Yeah, I don't know. You mean on Tentis?
No, on where we're
On
going.
Pabu?
No.
Oh, on on
The outpost.
Barton 4.
Yeah.
That's a good question. At the end of that episode, no, because the whole thing was go pick up the gear and take it somewhere else.
Yeah.
I think it was sort of we talk about the transition from the old Republic to the Empire and what things changed. And I get the impression that as the clones, because most of the clones died off either from the bandit attacks or the weather.
Yeah, because they were just throwing them because they didn't give a crap.
When you opened up those crates at the end of that episode, the gear inside was all clone armor.
Yeah.
But if you're not making clones anymore and you're transitioning from Republic to Empire, and maybe that base is just no longer of value anymore, maybe that's why they just
there's a plot thread we're not privy to too, because it seems like while we've been in prison or even between seasons, Echo and Rex are organizing and mobilizing.
They're doing stuff. Yeah.
So there's a section of stuff going on that we don't know the details of yet, but they appear to be looking like to liberate clones, and this is what we've been thinking the whole show was going to be about. When they first announced it, we were like, that's what we want to see the clone revolt from Legends.
Some sort of clone,
right?
Uprising.
Yeah. Right, the uprising from
Which
Legends.
isn't going to go well for them.
Yeah. But again, like he mentions later on, I didn't get daily updates.
No, being a prisoner.
He's operating off what he knew at that point.
Yeah, absolutely. Before they revoked his you're not a troop anymore.
And despite like Hunter's pretty gruff, I thought you said there was, I didn't think it was abandoned, but at the end of the day, they're just coming in to plug into a power terminal. They're not, there's that's even better than if there's nobody here.
Yeah.
There is no one here. That's great. We should all be happy about that.
Why is Hunter, you're so grim?
I don't know, unless he thought that maybe that somebody there would know more and they could squeeze him for information. I don't know. Who knows? Certainly not that weasel officer that Crosshair bullseyed. Sorry, later that night, Hunter loads some crates onto the Remora. Omega and Crosshair step out onto the ramp, moving to one side, and none of them make eye contact as they pass one another. At the stack of crates, Crosshair tells Omega, "Don't hold it against him. He's only worried about you." She understands, but she asks if Crosshair thinks that she should stay back as well. He tells her that she is capable for sure, but she's still just a kid. Omega smirks as she reminds him, "I'm older than you are, little brother."
I love that line.
Yeah, me too. Crosshair nods with a Then Wrecker walks up and he thrusts what looks like a military footlocker into Crosshair's arms. He says he doesn't know if it will still fit, but here you go. Opening the locker, Crosshair is surprised to see his Clone Force 99 armor. Wrecker nods as he tells him that it never felt right to get rid of it. As Wrecker walks away, Crosshair's eyes follow him up the ramp until he notices Hunter standing there having watched the exchange. Staring back at him, he closes the locker.
So Wrecker was holding on.
But Wrecker's always got that, has always had that childlike,
closer to Omega's hope.
Yeah, the childlike innocence, I'm big and tough, and he's that guy that you tell him, "Hey, go lift up that car." Okay.
Yeah.
He'd just be happy to do it.
Even when they go back to their quarters on Camino, he's lamenting Crosshair's cubby.
Yeah, that it's empty.
Season 1, right?
Right. We cut to the blackness of space where the Remora drops out of light speed over the icy world of Barton 4 and begins its descent. On the flight deck, Echo sits at the controls where he tells Hunter, Wrecker, and Omega they're now on approach. He says there's minimal life signs, if any. Crosshair is conspicuously absent here. Passing between the snow-covered, craggy peaks of a mountain range, the ship descends toward a facility cut into the base of one of the mountains. The ship lands just inside a line of Imperial sensors embedded in the snow. By the way, that's exactly what the descriptive audio calls them. A line of sensors embedded in the snow. I got more on that for you in a minute. Echo checks another display and tells him that he's not detecting any heat signatures and there's no comm traffic of any kind. Simply put, there is no one here. When the ramp drops, Batcher bounds out into the snow with her nose to the ground like a bloodhound. One by one, the Bad Batch make their way out onto the frozen ground and take a look around. As they stand there looking, Crosshair makes his way down the ramp, dressed in his clone armor. Wrecker exclaims, "Hey, it does fit! Ha ha!" Crosshair adjusts the plating on his forearm and he tugs at the neck. It's almost like putting on an itchy sweater.
Mm-hmm.
Get the sense that he might be a little uncomfortable in there.
Yeah. If anything, you think he'd be a bit too loose on him, being starved in prison.
Starved as a prisoner. Oh, that's possible.
I'd like to see if there's going to be a repaint next episode.
I was just thinking that, like, they've all had we now have different colors and pieces are stripped off. Like,
Omega will help him with that.
You think so?
Yep.
Yeah.
He'll end up having a paint scheme like the Tuca doll.
Oh, that's not out of the question either.
Yeah.
Well, Hunter and Echo. Sorry, Hank, go ahead.
No, that's a pretty good idea, actually.
Hunter and Echo turn to look. Admittedly, it is kind of nice to see Crosshair in his old duds. Hunter says that the outpost was supposed to be remote, not abandoned, and he thinks there's more to this place that Crosshair isn't telling them. Then everyone is alerted to Batcher, who's picked up on something and has begun to bark. Omega calls to her, saying, "What is it?" While Hunter draws up his macro binoculars. Looking past Batcher, he makes out one of the sensors pulsing with a red light. He says it's giving off a high-frequency tone, and he asks Crosshair what the sensors were used for. He tells him they were for perimeter detection against local raiders. Hunter chastises him, asking if he thought he should have warned them before now. Crosshair says no, because they were all dealt with. Hunter says, "And how do you know that?" Crosshair tells him, "Take a guess."
He's done things.
I've done things. Yeah, exactly. Well, the two men square off and Hunter asks, "Just following orders?" Crosshair fires back, "If you're scared, why don't you wait on the ship?" But then Echo breaks them up. "Hey, kill each other later." And he reminds them that they're here to crack the data pad and leave. With tensions running high, the group departs for the Imperial facility. But Omega hangs back with Crosshair for a second and scolds him a bit. I said talk to him, not argue with him. And like a child, Crosshair retorts, "He started it." Omega rolls her eyes and lets out a heavy sigh. Then she, Crosshair, and Batcher fall in line and head off to the outpost. Okay.
There's more of that big sister coming through.
Yeah. They talk about, they've used the term like sensors here kind of loosely. Yeah. The thing that they're looking at through the binoculars, that's a sensor. We saw those in the last season.
Yeah.
But the other things that they said, sensors sticking out of the snow, that's wrong. That is plainly wrong. And I'll tell you why. It's actually the tops of the buildings. That much snow has blown in. This is exactly the same spot where the Imperial shuttle landed last season. So you can see, like, with nobody clearing the snow anymore, like nature has reclaimed like 2 stories worth of ground there.
Yeah.
And buried those buildings. But if you do a side-by-side comparison, you can see that all of the antennas line up. So yeah, I thought that was an interesting little
detail.
Yeah. And then I've got another one here for you just to give you a better idea. As they're walking towards the door, that is the same front door.
So they're up on the second level.
That's what I mean. Like, that's, you see them digging in the snow and then you go, holy crap, there's that much there?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a lot. Well, at the entrance to the facility, the large steel double doors are blocked by several feet of snow. Hunter and Wrecker start digging by hand, but then Batcher pushes her way between them and literally burrows her way down through the snow in just a few seconds, neatly excavating a clearing. Well, the camera shifts to the sensor beacon with its red light pulsing around its circumference. Kind of a Knight Rider thing going on there. Yeah. I wish I had it on the board. I'd have played it right now. All right, then we're back at the doors where Wrecker has pried them open, and the batch all file in with flashlights and weapons drawn. The entryway is filled with an assortment of large crates, and the batch make their way past them where they find a bank of computer consoles. Omega spots one with a flashing red light. After examining it for a few seconds, she activates it. The Orabesh here says, initiating. Nice. Checking the readout, Omega says that the outpost power has been nearly depleted by the sensor beacons. That's the one that looks like Kit's flashing eye. So Echo tells her to divert all the power back to the depot. Taking off his helmet, he sits down at a nearby console. Wrecker asks why the Empire abandoned the depot, and Crosshair says, I guess it served its purpose. With his thoughts elsewhere, Crosshair walks off towards another room while Hunter scrutinizes him with narrowing eyes. This part was actually kind of touching.
Mm-hmm. And this is why I think maybe he thought there might be some clones left behind.
Maybe. I think that, but we were in this room before.
Yeah.
Because he walks past that heater. That's where he met.
And he looks at the heater like, oh, this is where those other clones showed me a little bit of.
This is the same room where he met, what's his name?
The bandage clone.
Mayday.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mayday and the rest of the clones. In the next room, Crosshair sweeps it with his flashlight. In the corner sit a pile of discarded clone trooper helmets. Kneeling down, he picks one of them up. It's wrapped in rags, and it wouldn't surprise me if this was in fact Mayday's helmet from season 2.
Yeah.
Cradling the helmet, Crosshair stares into its visor before reverently placing it on top of a nearby crate. Unaware that Hunter is watching from behind, which is in stark contrast to his advice to Omega about knowing when eyes are on you.
Yeah.
It kind of gives you an idea of how focused he is or how inside himself he is in this moment.
Well, this moment just reinforces to him that the Empire is throwing clones away. Because like when Mayday was there, you lose a clone, you put the helmet up in a little bit of position of honor, right?
Yeah.
And the Empire's just tossed them all on the floor like nothing.
Absolutely. They're just discarded, like the clones have been.
Exactly.
Cradling the helmet, Crosshair stares into its visor before reverently placing it on top of a nearby crate. Unaware that Hunter is watching from behind, Crosshair picks up more of the helmets from the floor and he neatly arranges them on the crate with the other one. Silently, Hunter gives a slow nod before ducking back out of the room. And even Hunter is sort of coming around like, oh, something has definitely changed inside him.
Something happened here with him.
Yeah. Back in the other room, Omega works at the small terminal where she's just diverted power from the sensor beacon back to the depot. As the red light on the beacon goes out, a faint crackling in the snow can be heard. After a hearty, that should do it, everyone looks around as the lights flicker on. With power restored, Echo plugs in Nalase's datapad and he begins to read the decrypted information on the display. Echo is surprised to see a manifest and he says there are more clones at Tantus than they thought. Then everyone turns and stares at Crosshair, who's just entered the room, but he avoids eye contact with everyone. Now, this is a little frustrating because the data, as I was watching the episode my first time through, I'm like, oh, great, there's going to be a bunch of language for us to translate.
Yeah.
And there really isn't.
Gibberish.
Yeah. It's unfortunate because the only thing that actually says anything is the bottom and its inventory log. I mean, I did sort of decipher the top line there, the FFYH45UN31RCDE, but then that's it. The whole thing is this like list of alphanumeric sort of designations. And I guess that's kind of like
I guess it's similar to when we had the
wall.
Yeah, the memorial wall.
Like, I was going to say it's a screen cap from the wall.
You couldn't, yeah.
You don't want to be too specific on who's hiding on Tantus.
Right. You can't pigeonhole yourself into like, oh, here's a list of names and now we got to deliver on that.
Yeah.
So I appreciate it, but at the same time,
because he does say, "Oh, look at this list of clones."
The show goes through great lengths sometimes to deliver. Sometimes we get Easter eggs inside the language, so you get a little bit like, oh, when they don't deliver on that. So, but I understand.
For me, it's you took the time to put characters down.
Yeah.
You could have taken the 30 more seconds it would have taken to make them make sense.
I agree. I agree. But yeah, gibberish. Outside, the camera pushes past the beacon towards the depot as a low rumble builds. While inside, Batcher turns and begins to sniff the floor and then lets out a bark. Picking up on the hound's uneasiness, Crosshair goes to leave the room. Hunter says, "And where are you going?" "To check the perimeter," he answers. Batcher whimpers a little bit before cowering on the floor. Hunter decides to go after Crosshair. Omega tries to follow him, but Echo stops her and says, "Let them work it out. We have to finish the data transfer." Outside, Crosshair walks past the Remora and begins to survey the surroundings. Perched on one of the buried buildings is a black ice vulture. It looks back at Crosshair before taking flight. We did see these
I don't think
last
this
season.
is just a random one. I think this is the same one that was circling him.
That was hunting him, or
You think so?
Yeah. Like when he's on the ground looking up at the sun and you
I
see
mean,
a circle.
making it a vulture, and if we equate Star Wars vultures to like real Earth vultures, I mean they are opportunistic, right? So
Yeah.
like, this is my next meal. As soon as it falls over, I get to eat it.
Literally a vulture. You know, the funny thing about this scene that occurred to me, it's warmer on this planet than the planet that Crosshair and Omega were on in the second episode, because you can't see their breath.
I thought the same thing. I'm like, they made a point to show the breath in the shuttle, the canopy, and now
Right.
we're on an icy planet and nothing.
And nothing.
I guess it's expensive to do that.
Or if we go back to Crosshair having some touch of Jedi in him, you know, Ahsoka has the owls. Maybe he's got the
vultures.
I thought, because like the way he sighs in this scene, when he sees the thing and he sighs, he's like, oh, there's that thing that was hunting me. I really thought the last scene was going to be him sniping it out of the sky to kind of go like, I'm back.
There's an analogy to be made here about the first time we saw them, where he was all in. He's pure Empire.
Yeah.
And that the vulture might actually represent freedom. Particularly Crosshair's freedom.
Yeah.
It does. It's got a Phoenix quality to it.
It does have that, for sure. It does.
Yeah.
And like nobody else seems to notice it but him, right?
No, you're right.
Because like again, his attachment to this place and what it meant to him.
You never quite know, like every time we see one, like you said, is it the same one every time?
And is this like some sort of spiritual connection to him?
Certainly it's there's a story connection there for us that we're supposed to pick up on. Yeah. Well, then Crosshair's eyes narrow as he senses something else. Are you going to be my shadow everywhere? He says before turning around to see Hunter walking towards him.
There's that reading the terrain again.
Hunter levels a sorry?
Caught him that time.
Yeah, got him that time. Hunter levels a finger at him and he says, I know you. There's more you're not telling us, and I'm done waiting. Start talking, Crosshair. What did you do to finally get on the Empire's bad side? Betray them like you did us? Oh. Angry. Crosshair looks down as his hand trembles again. The camera then shifts to a wide shot of the landing area, and it zooms toward the two men standing there. All the while, a rumbling sound can be heard from beneath the snow.
There's the tremors.
Well, here's our Black Ice Vulture. That is the concept art. Now, that's
this is closer than we ever got last time.
Pretty true to form. I'd say the finished animation model looks just like the concept art.
Yeah.
Not a lot of other details in there. I mean, one reviewer suggested that they looked, what was it, like the crystal foxes from Rise of Skywalker?
A little bit, yeah.
That they had sort of an icy
like a
quality, to their bodies. I don't know if I see it, but it's a cool looking bird for sure.
And there could be our next design for Crosshairs. Instead of a Tuca doll, he'll have like the crosshair.
That actually makes more sense if he painted his armor up in like
black ice.
As soon as you said it, I had a vision of Omega's helmet being the Tuca doll face painted.
Oh, that would be cool too. Yeah. Crosshair all done up like the Ice Vulture.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where are we at here? Okay, here we go. Inside the depot, Echo continues his cursory screening of the data on Nalase's datapad. Omega asks if there's any schematics on it, but all he can see are medical records, and he thinks that's all they're going to get. Optimistically, he says, at least that's something. As the low rumbling builds, Batcher can sense something, and she begins to pace in a circle, barking and jumping up and down. Omega notices her and thinks that something is wrong. We do get a little bit more Aurebesh on the computer screen at the terminal that Echo is sitting at. This one says system command, initialization success, and status running. So at least they put the time in this one.
Yeah. But at the same time, it makes sense that there wouldn't be any schematics on it, right? Like it's Nalase's pad, so
it's sciencey, yeah.
And the thing really more acts like a key card than a friggin' data pad.
Yeah, I feel like that sort of
like when she plugged into the prison block, then she got some prison options.
It's interesting that they've chosen to do that. I mean, in Legends, we've always associated code cylinders with as door keys. So to see them use a data pad, and we've not seen that before.
No.
We didn't see it in 7 seasons of Clone Wars.
That's
or any
them
of the
using
other,
real world tech from today and kind of morphing it over,
making it look
That's
Star
like-
Warsian.
Yeah, it's an iPad, right?
Yeah,
Get your brand new Star Wars data pad.
Yeah.
But the fact that they still have to insert it into the slot, like it still is a physical key, that's kind of like, oh, okay,
Well, that's no different than your smartphones now acting as your banking and everything else.
that's true. But you don't have to like stick your phone inside a thing to use it, right?
No, but you tap it.
Yeah, that's true. Outside, Hunter confronts Crosshair. You think we'd take you back and not ask questions? I don't think so. Tell me what changed. And with that, Hunter forcefully shoves Crosshair back. What happened, Crosshair? Crosshair's expression darkens, and he looks away for a moment before looking back at Hunter and telling him that he killed an Imperial officer, admitting that yes, he did in fact betray them, but it was only after the Empire betrayed him first. With that,
Weird way to put that too, right?
after they betrayed me,
Yeah.
but it's his outlook, his perspective on,
Like technically they didn't betray him. They just didn't give a crap about Mayday. It was like, oh, he's dying? Yeah, throw him on the pile.
Crosshair is the perfect example of why it's bad to blindly follow orders.
Yes.
I hate to say it, but that's what it is. With the revelation finally out, Crosshair unloads on Hunter. Don't pretend this was all about me. He tells him how he risked everything to send him the message, but it was Hunter that chose to ignore it. Staring at him, Crosshair accuses Hunter of being the one that let Omega be taken to Tantus. Poking Hunter in the chest, Crosshair tells him that Omega went through what she did because Hunter was the one that failed her. And he's angry because Omega escaped with his help and not Hunter's. At this point, both men clench their fists, but it's interrupted by Batcher and the rest of the team exiting the building. Batcher barks at them and the ground begins to shake. Of course, we did predict that. It was going to be this supremely tense moment, but somebody was going to
break it up.
You'd said Batcher was going to break it up. And I guess on a technicality, you could say that because she is out in front.
Yeah, I thought it was going to happen way sooner.
If I had $1 for every time a fist fight between friends was broken up by an ice worm, though.
Well, something triggers Hunter's sixth sense, and he shouts at Crosshair, "Move!" and shoves him out of the way, placing himself between his brother and the erupting snowpack. A massive beast with an armored carapace bursts through the ground, towering several feet over them. It lets out a roar from its toothy maw before slamming its body down on the surface. The impact creates a fissure in the snowpack, and the remora sinks several feet down. Then Crosshair and Hunter run for their lives towards the Imperial Depot. The ice worm dives below the snow and chases them like a submarine chasing a surface vessel. Wrecker starts to push the depot doors closed, and both Hunter and Crosshair barely slide in before the beast runs headlong into the building. They're safe for now.
Moment right out of Tremors.
What, into the building?
The big worm underground chasing them.
But I don't know if I don't equate that to Tremors. I know that we saw that in Tremors, but I mean, before Tremors, there was Dune.
True.
And I mean, if this isn't, a take on the sandworm, then I don't really know what is. Here's the from the Star Wars databank, we get a little more detail on the ice worm itself, mostly sort of color swatches, but sorry guys, we do get a full and complete look at its body. It's almost fish-like, yeah. Fish-like in the it's got a distinctive tail.
It's swimming through frozen water.
I wonder if it's related to the beast that they're carving up in Obi-Wan.
Yeah, that's a possibility as well.
I don't know. Those
like concentric rows of ribs, like.
Yeah, but these are armored plates, right?
Yeah.
I get that. Like, it almost has like if I had to put a real world animal on top of that, does that not look like the profile of a shark?
Yeah. Minus the dorsal fin.
Well, exactly.
Yeah.
But I mean, you could even sort of squint at it and go, one of those armored
could be.
It
stands up.
Yeah, exactly.
Even the palette, especially that face on one in the top corner.
Dark on the top. And
it is super, super cool And it's just, again, funny that, this is the monster of the week, the same week that Dune comes out.
Yeah.
Well, according to the data bank, the reason that these creatures, that we didn't see them in season 2, because Barton 4 is extremely cold. So they only come out when it's warmer, which is kind of funny for an ice world, but that should tell us that Barton 4 is actually experiencing a relatively warm period right now.
Which
hence,
would explain
hence
away
the no breath.
Yeah.
And only 60 feet of snow.
That's right.
It's been a long winter.
Well, as the batch collect themselves, Omega blurts out, and I guess we know what the perimeter sensors were meant to keep out. The building rattles again and the lights go out. Everybody pulls out flashlights while Hunter says there's no chance of digging out the remora with that creature outside. Echo says they'll have to restore power to the beacons. And the whole thing is reminiscent of Samuel Jackson's character explaining how to restore the power to Jurassic Park.
Yep.
Rushing to the small terminal, he sees there's a fuse box for the reserve power grid at the back of the compound. Crosshair points out that someone will have to reset the power manually. Wrecker immediately volunteers. Omega says that once that's done, she can reset the defense systems from here. Hunter says that they'll have to draw the ice worm away from the perimeter or they'll be trapped inside with it. Crosshair says he'll handle it. But Hunter retorts, not alone. We'll do it together. Crosshair asks, are you sure about that? While Echo interjects that he'll spot both of them from the tower just outside the front door. Then everybody moves to the door where Wrecker pulls them open. Hunter holds up his hand for a 3 count and everybody scans their arcs. Dropping his hand, the batch all make a break for it. Hunter and Crosshair run towards the open landing area while Echo and Wrecker move around the outside of the building. As Hunter passes the remora, he and Crosshair spot a ripple in the snow that's moving towards Hunter. Crosshair stops and he raises his rifle. He calls out 3 o'clock and he looses a volley of fire at the speeding mound. Then it erupts and the ice worm launches itself at Hunter, who narrowly dives out of the way. But when the worm burrows back under the snow, it creates a fissure that gives way to an open crevasse under Hunter's feet, swallowing him several meters below the surface. Crosshair runs to the opening in the snow and he calls down to him, Hunter! Fortunately, there was enough snow to cushion his fall, and he's alive, albeit jarred. Wrecker sprints to the other side of the compound, exclaiming, why is there always a huge monster? Echo climbs into the tower just as Wrecker asks him if he can see it. Looking around with his macro binoculars, he spots Crosshair standing over the open crevasse, while Batcher races towards him. He tells Echo that, he tells Wrecker that he doesn't have a visual on the creature. Getting to his feet, Hunter takes out a flashlight and he pans it around. It seems as though he's standing inside a tunnel. Crosshair, now joined by Batcher, calls down, can you get outside the perimeter from down there? Hunter says he'll follow the tunnel to the north, while Crosshair says that he and Batcher will track them from the surface. Then Hunter runs off down the tunnel with Crosshair and Batcher following from above. Wrecker arrives at the door to the auxiliary power station and he finds it completely covered in snow. He throws up his arms in frustration, but then drops to his knees and begins clearing the snow with his hands.
Could have helped.
I know. That was fast. I was thinking she was part mole.
Yeah.
Echo spots a ripple in the snow and he calls Crosshair, telling him that the worm is closing in from about 100 meters behind him. Stopping, he turns and raises his rifle at the speeding snowdrift. Taking a shot, it goes high. So he shakes his tremoring hand and he tries again. This time, the blast lands its mark, forcing the worm up to the surface where it drives headlong at him. Crosshair continues to fire and one blast lands inside its gaping maw, causing the creature to rear up in pain, but then dive back under the snow just a few feet from he and Batcher. Opening a comm channel, he tells Hunter, I think I just made it angrier.
It would have been funny if he had said, smile, you son of a bitch.
Yeah.
Well, there is that too. Yeah, shoot him in the mouth.
Yeah. But going back to their comparison to a shark, do you remember a few years back there was that terrible movie called Snow Shark? where basically a bunch of skiers on an alpine hill.
I don't remember that.
It's bad. It's like C tier bad. But there's literally a snow shark that swims through the snow.
Snow shark.
And attacks people.
That's horrifying.
Jaws on a ski
like
hill.
A pit bull with wings.
Well, maybe that's where the inspiration for the look of the creature.
Because like when you said it came out of the snow.
Out of the snow.
Back
yeah.
It's like, oh, I've seen that before.
All right. Still running north inside the tunnel, Hunter keys his comlink and replies, "Fantastic." Meanwhile, Wrecker has cleared the door and he forces it open. He tells Omega that he's found the fuse box, and she tells him that he needs to prime the breaker. Grabbing a hold of the large handle on the box, Wrecker begins pumping the handle up and down, just like Laura Dern's character in Jurassic Park.
You have to prime it 3 times.
Yeah, exactly.
Wrecker and Laura Dern look a lot alike.
Outside. Oh, sorry. I got to advance.
It's Holdo.
Yeah, really.
You Holdo.
Outside, Batcher and Crosshair sprint towards the sensor beacon. Crosshair radios Hunter, telling him that, Crosshair radios Hunter, telling him that he's about 400 meters away. Echo, still tracking them from the tower with his binoculars, says there's no sign of the worm. Down below, Hunter looks back over his shoulder as the tunnel begins to shudder. While on the surface, Batcher and Crosshair have reached the beacon. The hound sniffs the ground and barks before running a few more meters past it. As she looks back at Crosshair and barks again and then starts to dig. Crosshair radios Hunter to tell them they think they found a weak spot in the ice and they'll try to dig through. Incredulously, Hunter repeats, "You'll try?" My camera just cut out.
Oh, weird.
That is bizarre. What the heck just happened there?
Oh, no.
I'm not sure what's going on here. Hold on a second. Let me try this again.
Battery die?
It shouldn't be. It's plugged in.
Still looks like it's
camera. I'm looking at the camera. So just give me a second here, folks. Apologize for that. I'm going to see if
problem.
I can.
Your screenshot was pulsating like you were talking.
That's weird. So that was a StreamYard actually stopped the camera by accident.
Huh.
Oops.
Bizarre. All right. Sorry. Where were we?
You'll try?
Yeah, you'll try. It's more of a question than a statement. Crosshair remarks, "Glad you heard me." And then he blasts a small hole in the ice. And with the butt of his rifle, he begins hammering away at the hole, chipping away the ice to widen the opening. In the auxiliary power shed, Wrecker finishes priming the breaker and he asks, "What's next?" Omega tells him to cycle the navigator to the right of the main breaker. So he twists the 3 large dials and we can hear the sound of a power cycle starting up.
It's like a barbecue.
Yeah, really. Of course, it like electric start. Damn thing. Change the battery. No, it's still got juice.
Is propane on?
Where'd I go here? Yeah, there we are. Down in the tunnel, Hunter dodges some falling ice. He radios in, telling the others that things are getting close down here, and asks if he's going to have a way out or not. Crosshair answers, "If you end up where we hope you do." Back in the shed, the lights flicker on, and an elated Wrecker shouts, "Boom! The power's back on!" Omega calls to Hunter, wondering if she should activate the beacon. He tells her to wait, noting that they have to make sure the worm is past the perimeter. On the surface, Crosshair fires his rifle into the ice in several more spots to widen the hole, while Batcher moves around, digging at each one. Very smart dog.
Dog is just like making itself
it's awesome.
so useful to the team.
Yeah,
and he's bonded to Crosshair. Notice that.
I did catch on that.
Yeah, man and dog make good hunters.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Hunter rounds a corner and he sees the light and snow falling in the hole being excavated, and he runs to the opening. Crosshair shouts at him, "Get up here!" But Hunter says, "Not yet." He radios Echo in the tower, asking where the worm is. Echo scans the area, but he can see nothing. Hunter, standing under the opening, looks back down the tunnel where he came from, but then a roar from the opposite direction tells him the worm has got around them.
The worm has tunnels.
Then the tunnel shakes and the worm appears just a few meters in front of him. Hunter shouts into the comm, "It's past the perimeter!" Crosshair radios Omega and she activates the sensors. One by one, they all flicker to life on the computer display in front of her. Looking at the beacon just a few meters away, Crosshair sees the red light on it begin to flash. So he dangles the butt of his rifle into the hole for Hunter to grab hold of it. With the worm nearly on top of them, Hunter grabs hold of it, and together they scramble to get clear. The worm breaches just a few feet in front of them, but Hunter, Crosshair, and Batcher are already running toward the beacon. The worm glides like a fish through the snow, and it seems like it will overtake them, but somehow they manage to dive past the beacon just as it begins to emit its high-frequency signal. The worm stops immediately outside the perimeter and just shakes its head back and forth slowly a few times. Hunter and Crosshair take off their helmets to look back while the creature sits there roaring at them. Batcher.
Pain.
Hey?
The frequency is causing it pain.
I think it's like, invisible fencing for dogs, really.
Yeah.
Mm.
Batcher, now safely behind the invisible perimeter barrier, barks at the creature, and it moves off, sliding back beneath the snow. Now, he laughed at that. I'm like, because Batcher's smart enough to know she's on the right side of the fence.
All dogs do that.
If you were on the other side of that, it'd be a different story.
I'm super tough when you can't get to me.
That's right. Well, the rest of the clones gather outside the depot and watch as Crosshair and Hunter come walking in. Oh, sorry. I did that wrong. I jumped ahead. Let me back up a second here. The two men, exhausted from the near-death experience, fall back in the snow, and they just sit there while Batcher snuggles into Crosshair. Hunter looks up and locks eyes with Crosshair, but there's no more animosity there for either of them, and they look out at the pulsing beacon. It's that moment of like,
the silent.
We almost bought it.
Yeah.
So there's always been animosity. You go back to even the arc, Clone Wars season 7 arc that featured them. There's always been this like Crosshair thinks he should be the leader, and so they always have ideological splits, and they always have differences of sort of opinion. But in the middle of that fight, you see them go from arguing to back to banter. That style of banter.
Oh yeah.
Like, are you, you heard me correctly, or if you end up where I think you're going to end, like it stops less being, more like
adversarial.
Yeah, and more like back to what it was before, which was fairly adversarial anyway.
That's
they
true.
were always.
It was always
competing.
There was always but there was always a tongue-in-cheek sort of element to it as well.
Well, I think that's the thing that we'll get to is that the brotherhood, the being clones is going to trump any
more important than whatever he might have done,
especially as we get closer to the drain of like as we get fewer and fewer clones, that bond will be more and more and more.
No, I think you're right on that.
Yeah.
Well, the rest of let's advance the slide now. Here we go. The rest of the clones gather outside the depot and watch as Crosshair and Hunter come walking in. Both men look exhausted, although Batcher lopes along beside them. Wrecker runs out and he gathers both of them in his arms for a big hug.
Yeah, that's great.
While Omega smiles as she takes it all in. And then, speaking matter-of-factly, Echo says, "See, they always work it out." And shielding his eyes from the glare, he says, "And I don't even see any blood this time." Turning to Omega, he adds, "That's progress."
And see, that's referring to like an event that happened before Omega joined them. Like,
yeah, exactly.
They're apt to have a fist fight. Like,
like brothers.
It's that relationship.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Holding up the data pad, she asks, "Do you think the intel we recovered will help you and Rex?" Echo says that while they still don't know the coordinates for Tantus, all of the data on the pad and what she and Crosshair have told him means they're closer to finding and freeing the clones. Omega says she just wishes that she could have done more. But Echo says that she did everything she could, and he adds that she did exactly what she was supposed to do by escaping. She takes it all in, but she still has a troubled look. Well, later on, they dig the ship out and prepare to leave Barton 4. Wrecker boards the ship while Crosshair stands off to one side with a long stare in his eyes and a shovel in his hands. He looks up as Hunter. I got the impression that he was just sort of staring. He's staring off at the facility, and all the events of what's happened to him there on Barton 4 are just kind of playing through.
Well, it's come full circle now, right?
Yeah. Well, the last time he left here,
It was in chains.
he was as a prisoner.
Yeah.
And he's now have Omega ringing in his head. You've got to talk to them. You've got to talk to them. You've got to talk to them.
That's true. He looks up as Hunter approaches. Without a word, Hunter walks past him, and then Crosshair sighs. Hunter, he calls without turning around. Hunter stops and looks back. Now Crosshair, still with his back towards him, struggles to get the words out. I thought I knew what I was getting into with the Empire. I thought I was being a good soldier. The camera's focus shifts to Hunter as he says, no one really understood what was happening back then. Crosshair turns and he continues, I've done things. I've made mistakes. Like murder, but that's a, hey, whatever. Hunter tells him that he has regrets too, but all they can do is keep trying to be better, and maybe there's hope for them all yet. Then Hunter boards the Remora while Crosshair looks back at the outpost with a worried look. Well, then a black ice vulture screeches, and he looks up at it flying between the two mountain peaks. Crosshair boards the Remora, and it slowly lifts off and pulls away. And the episode closes on a wide aerial shot of the outpost at Barton 4. Cool thing, little detail. See the
collapsed in snow tunnels.
Yeah, I thought that looks pretty freaking cool.
Yeah.
And then our episode cuts to black. And that is it for episode 5, The Return. Whew. How do we feel about that one now that it's over?
Not bad. I think they missed one small opportunity to have like baby ice worms pop out when Wrecker was driving the thing.
That's an interesting thought. Baby ice worms.
I still feel like you said, like I generally have a better appreciation for the episodes after we chew them up.
Yeah.
And I still feel underwhelmed by this.
Me too. Absolutely.
I mean, you could have had a garrison of, I guess there's imagine that there's fans out there like that are us, but like are sick of them fighting stormtroopers all the time. So in my head, I'd rather there have been a garrison of troopers left behind that they had to deal with. That's kind of my style of Star Wars.
It's funny, that
I bet you there's people out there going, there's not enough giant beasts in Star Wars, so we should have the
really
third episode now.
You say that, you bring that up right now in season 2. This place was part of Crosshair's mission was go and deal with the Raiders.
Yeah.
Right.
So the Raiders were there, presumably to steal the equipment. But now the Empire's gone, but there's still equipment there.
Right.
No more Raiders? Like, you telling me that there aren't other people that would have been interested in an abandoned Imperial facility?
If they knew about it.
That's true.
Maybe these Raiders got lucky and then they crossed Crosshair's path.
Well, it was unlucky because
they could have been native and taken out.
That's
for sure too.
That's possible too. A little underwhelmed. Normally by the end of these things, I always ask you guys where we think it's going to go next, and we always kind of swing wide. But I have to be. I'm going to be cautious. I'm a little more reserved because of the excitement I had this week. I potentially set myself up to be disappointed, and I don't want to do that again.
Yeah.
But
I figure
next week is a double drop.
I figure we're heading back to see Rex.
Yep.
I hope so.
And we're going to get that plot point that they've been dangling, which is that there's some movement to liberate the clones after something in that wheelhouse, either to rescue them or liberate them or break from the Empire once and for all.
What about Chuchi's efforts to set up a retirement gig for some of them? Like, I mean, presumably some of them have just sort of faded away and become citizens. They couldn't all have been.
No. I don't know if we'll, you're frozen. Oh, there you are.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. Maybe we'll go back into a little bit of the politics wheelhouse. But certainly with only, we're a full third of the season finished. Yeah.
We are 5 episodes in of a 15 episode season. Yeah.
So, I would assume the pace will pick up.
I mean, I really hope so.
There's big stakes. But like when you think about it, we're no further ahead in the cloning game by the end of this than we are at the sort of beginning of the Force Awakens. We're baby steps past that.
Oh yeah,
so,
you're right.
You know what I mean? So I don't know if we're going to get any huge Snoke in a tank revelations or
no
Palpatine, his son escaping or something cool like that.
Yeah, I think we're too far from that. Like, those things, that event is like what, 35 years later, possibly.
Yeah,
well,
right.
However, minus Rey's age at the beginning of Force Awakens.
But we are leaning into lending legitimacy, like recontextualizing.
Yeah, exactly.
The sequels and trying to, for what it's worth, make them feel cooler to us.
Well, I mean, I don't want to spoil it here, but I'm going to. A little spoilery. Next week's episodes, and I can see why they're doing 2 of them next week. Episode 6, Infiltration.
Mm-hmm.
Episode 7, Extraction.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, are we going back to Tantus next week? Are we that close to going back?
Maybe.
Or is it some other installation or something?
Well, we know that Hemlock has now put all eggs in one basket concerning Omega.
Yeah.
So everybody's coming after them.
Well, the Emperor said, full might of the Empire, whatever you need.
And maybe one of those comes in and say, we've already re-hooked up with Rex and say a contingent of other clones and rebels. And it flips on them. They're like, okay, we know where you're coming from. Tell us where to go.
As Hemlock, though, where you're in this position where, Emperor, I have everything I need to do your bidding, and it's coming along really well. Oh, very good. You have my entire everything at your disposal, the entire power of the Empire at your disposal, and then you lose.
Well, yeah.
By the way,
you got
rid of the one good thing.
Remember when you said I could use anything I needed? Well, I'm going to need it all because I lost that thing that we had that you needed.
That one thing that you told me to hold on to.
You remember
that? I dropped it.
if Vader ever force choked a bitch for stepping out of line,
that's right. Yes.
Right. Like Hemlock, I would think that Hemlock would be cautious about asking for
that's resources. A good point. That's a great point. Is there potential to have an appearance from Vader before the end of this series?
He's not as forgiving as I am.
I know that he's not central to this particular story, that it is about the clones.
But he is out there active right now.
Absolutely he is. Absolutely is.
I mean, at some point, whether we see it in an Obi-Wan season 2 kind of thing, or in some, I don't care if it's a novel or a fan fiction, even, I need me some Rex and Anakin coming to terms with one another at some point. I like, you know what I mean?
That's very dangerous.
I almost need it. I mean, even if it's the end of Rex and makes Anakin's.
It can't be though. I mean, we've already canonically know that he's survived to at least Endor.
At least Return of the Jedi. Right. Exactly.
Right.
So he does, but I mean, there's got to be that other moment of.
Maybe it's better off that they don't actually have that.
It probably is, because it would mean Rex couldn't go toe to toe.
You don't want to have some kind of reckoning between these two, knowing that Rex has survived, because I just don't see a scenario where Rex survives if he had to face Vader.
No, I guess in hindsight,
unless they plant another one of those good seeds, right? And Anakin has a flashback and go.
Yeah,
gone from me.
There's still good. There's still goodness in you.
Yeah.
It occurred to me the other night while I was laying in bed, not thinking about Star Wars incessantly.
Sure.
Could they not have shipped the Jedi to do the same thing?
Yeah. Maybe
at birth, you're getting these children at a super young age.
Yeah.
Just a thought. A dark one.
As we are. As we are incessantly talking about Star Wars all the time and thinking about it, some of the things that have crossed my mind is we've gotten some really good stuff on the Inquisitorius between the 2 Jedi games and Obi-Wan. But I would love to see some early, who wouldn't love to see, the Grand Inquisitor getting anointed as the Grand Inquisitor, at least as here's a thing off in the corner, that's happening. That would be cool.
The stuff surrounding the early, like basically the Emperor handing off the Enterprise, if you will, to Vader, and his subsequent training of the members is incredible. It's incredible stuff.
I still hold out hope that we get a Omega Gunji thing, like we get the Han and Chewie thing. Also,
we might get that in.
Well, this is what I mean. Like we do. Yeah, the cavalry has arrived.
That could be,
We did talk about last season Omega going around the galaxy, and now she's got a small cadre of friends.
Yeah.
Do all the friends show up? Harrison Dula or Cham and Gobi show up with Hera in tow. Yeah. Gunji shows up. Who else did we meet?
Chopper.
Well, Chop, obviously, but like
the extra clone, the young boy clones from episode 2.
What about oh my god, season 1, Top,
the one who had
the Family Guy. Yeah. Family Guy.
Family Guy.
But like I said, like you get everybody who's who in the zoo that we've ever met, and they all show up, and we get this big payoff of everybody has a stake in whatever the finale is.
Could even bring Sid in, like as a
absolutely, yeah. And as much as maybe not. Yeah, maybe Sid. I was gonna say, what about Malegi? But he's a bit more. I think he's a little more crime lordy.
Well, Ketch and Bolo can do it.
I mean,
Bolo and Ketch.
You might even be able to bring in some of the Broken Horn society, like he drops a little.
Oh right.
I hope you find what you're looking for there, like a concern for Omega almost.
No, you make a good point.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's been the return. Like I said, next week we're back for 2 more. It's Infiltration and Extraction. I believe we're going to go with Are we going to do our regular Sunday night slot for 2 episodes, or are we going to?
As well.
Yeah.
We want to. Okay, that's good. So we'll discuss that here in a minute once we wrap it up for the night. Anybody got anything they want to close out on before we say goodnight?
I haven't lost faith or anything. I think it was just. I think that they had to take time to get them back together, Crosshair and Hunter, or I guess Crosshair and everyone, but everybody else seems to be okay with it except Hunter. So I think they maybe needed an entire episode to do that so it didn't feel rushed.
Sure.
And even across 23 minutes or 24 minutes, it still felt kind of like, oh, okay. Everything's forgiven. Yeah. But maybe we don't have to worry about that moving forward.
Maybe not. With this episode, this double drop being what we think is maybe them going back to Tantus, it's a good opportunity to really reunite everybody, and maybe our clone assassin that I think is Tech will make an appearance.
Tragedy.
Which should speak to the title of one of them, Identity Crisis, that's coming up.
Right. Who am I?
Yeah.
Who am I?
Which side of the coin do
can I break free of the programming?
But that could just as easily go to Emery, right?
No, that's true too. Yeah. Could she break free of the programming?
Yeah.
I mean, that'd be a great episode because you could have both of those characters struggling with that during the same episode.
Yeah.
Maybe that's too much. I don't know.
Well, if you have 2 of them struggling through the same episode, then one does make the right choice and the other makes the wrong one.
Oh, yeah.
Testing Omega's, and the Crosshair telling her, don't trust every clone.
Yeah. Is that one that we have to pay off though? Like that we have?
I don't know for sure, but it definitely echoed through that episode.
Yeah.
Because they're in the Luca Hound pens, and she still triggered the alarm.
That's true.
So
kind of it's reminiscent of don't talk to strangers.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. Well, listen, we'll be back next week. If you're not here next Sunday, do come and hang out with us on Tuesday. Andy and I will be here for Random Fandom Tuesday, where we talk about another
random
batch of random entertainment headlines that we pull from the headlines of the news world. And that's a fun thing. So come back for that. Otherwise, we'll see you next week. Whatever your thing is, everybody, remember, always fan on. And for Fandom Power, my name is Wes.
Andy.
I'm Hank.
And we will see you on the next one. Bye for now, everybody.